This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 110.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, Benny? Let's hear it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, the longer this goes, the crazier it gets.
Like, you have hair on both sides of your face, like above and below. If anybody's watching this on YouTube, you'll know what I'm talking about.
My goal is to go for the old caveman, only eyes popping out, maybe a nose, and then my teeth when I smile, but not just full hair.
Yeah, well, maybe we shouldn't do this so early in the morning for you. Especially if like right now, you have no reason to wake up early.
Yeah.
If you wake up and you're at work.
Yep, no, it's true. That's a good point.
So why would you wake up at 6 to be at work at 8 if you can wake up at 7:55 and be already at work?
Big fan of that. Yeah, no, that's true.
As long as no one asks you to get up while you're on a conference call, because you're not wearing pants from what you told me today.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, thank goodness for being able to turn off your video on a whim or just like blame things on technology. But,
yeah. So yeah, we don't have a guest today. It's just you and I, and we're chit-chatting. And I just did a video recently about the secrets skills. What was the title? Secret role of sales engineers. And the whole point was we talk a lot about discovery calls, demonstrations, proof of concepts, working with your account manager. But there are so many different things that SEs do no one ever talks about. Mm-hmm. And they might not be huge, but they're little things that people should know about. And especially if it's new SEs or people who want to be SEs, or even SEs who don't know if anybody else does the same thing. I don't know if that was English, but I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And even for a lot of people that like even in your situation, I was in a similar situation too, where as an SC, maybe your manager isn't an SC, and so they don't necessarily have a full appreciation of what it is that you're doing for them. And so having that context is important to be able to communicate that too. As I had to learn, I had to be able to communicate what you're doing to those types of people is critical. Otherwise, they don't know.
Yep. All right. So there is a YouTube video which we're going to put it in the show notes. I'm not going to go over the exact same things, but there are some things I'm going to dissect a little bit more, and I'm going to talk about some other stuff. But hey, maybe I'll start with you. What are some things that you think about that you do that we don't really talk about much?
Yeah, good question.
Other than comb your hair.
You're right. Well, I don't do that anyways. So, yeah, things we don't. But so, what do we talk about? We talk a lot about doing demos. We talk a lot about doing prep for demos. We talk a lot rather about speaking to customers and stuff. But I guess we don't really talk too much about what we do internally. So, with the information that we're receiving all the time, what are we doing with that information? And so, in my case, I came from the product side of the company first before moving on to being a sales engineer. And so a lot of the relationships that I built up while working for the product management team, I still foster today. So a lot of the information that, I'm taking in, I'm sharing with different people in product, kind of seeing what that develops into. I know we'll talk about it a little bit later on today, but even in the development of proof of concepts, you don't just decide to do a proof of concept, or at least in my experience, you don't just decide to do a proof of concept, snap your fingers and then have it be, but rather there's the kind of the setup for it, the planning for it to make sure that it's what it needs to be, then also testing it to make sure that it's up to a certain standard that can perform well. So I guess, yeah, testing, communicating, even developing some products, probably not from a coding perspective necessarily, but, just like creating question sets or creating workflows that might be unique to a customer situation or prospect situation are all in there. There's definitely other things too.
Hold on. Let's talk about this first. First off, are you telling me that we can't snap our fingers and have a demo ready? Really? Hey,
I mean, true.
The first thing I heard you say is that we are kind of like connectors. I don't know if you went into that explicitly, but when you talked about working with product managers, yeah, we do that all the time in the sense that sometimes we have to connect a customer with a specific account manager, and although account managers can do that, SEs tend to do it a little bit more because we know exactly what account manager is working on. Again, my English is no good today. we know like account manager A, product manager A is working on feature X, right? And customer mentioned that feature X might be of interest. It's a brand new thing that's not out yet. All right, let's try to connect the two so that our product managers can capture more information so that they can come up with a product that customers actually want. So we are connectors when it comes to that. I find that also SEs connect people within the same company who are doing similar things, or within separate companies that might not be competitors doing the same thing. And like, hey, this is what they're doing. This is what, at least I do that, because each customer of mine has like 2,000 employees, 10 different groups or organizations, and organization A can be doing the same thing as organization B. So just talk to each other while you're repeating the work, right? So yeah, we are connectors.
Would you actually connect those two companies? So those two prospects you're speaking to, would you, or customers you're speaking to, would you actually get them connected with each other, or are you always a conduit between them?
I could. So for my customers, like I said, if it's within one customer, let's say Nokia, there is 3 buildings in Ottawa that are Nokia, 2,000 people. So I may connect, hey, you know that they may already know each other. Like, hey, you know that this guy is also doing the same thing, right? Did you talk to them about it? It's like, no. All right, like, do you want me to broker introductions? It's like, no, I already know him. I'll reach out, right?
Got it. Okay. So
I haven't so I haven't done it between other companies, but I don't, unless they're competitors, I don't see a problem. Because like we are doing the coffee meetings, right? The virtual coffee breaks, and I've had people from Cisco and Nokia show up at the same time, competitors, but we still talk about SE, right? And similar. If they're not competitors, I don't see a problem.
Fair enough. And I guess also, like, a lot of customer conferences that companies will hold will have competitors all come together and share best practices.
Yeah, but with their permission, right? So
Sure.
I'm not gonna I would say, hey, I know someone who's doing this. Let me reach out and see if they can talk to you, right?
Right.
Not like, oh, you know, this guy, just reach out to him on LinkedIn. He'll or this person is doing that. So yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I just wonder if that's something to do with like the frame of mind, like as a sales, like not as a sales engineer, but as a sales rep. You know, your goal is always kind of outward facing, always looking for the next deal to get you closer to your number, to have you hit your quota. Whereas as a sales engineer, while there is some of that possibly happening as well, depending on the structure that you have, I feel like there's a little bit more. I shouldn't say less of a focus necessarily on just hitting the quota, but it seems like one as a sales engineer is a little bit, or rather, the blinders aren't as up for a sales engineer, and that they are kind of able to, you know, sure, see the next deal, but kind of see where the technology of things are going, and see like what types of people might be involved in either development or the creation or whatever it may be. And at least in my experience, I'm having a difficult time articulating it, but a lot of the things that are going on, you know, outside of the sales process are things that sales reps don't necessarily know as much about or have as much awareness about. Whereas as a sales engineer, it just seems like, I don't know, I'm just aware of more things that fall outside of the sales process and fall outside of the sales pipeline than my sales counterparts. And just that perspective that's outside of just hitting the next number and kind of selling. I don't know, I found to be very interesting. That's something that seems to be unique to us and maybe some others in the organization.
Yeah, like I feel like it's different. We're a team, right? Their focus is one thing, our focus is another, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may know a lot more people, right? And like maybe upper management, they might know a little bit more. We know the engineers, we know the technical folks who are using the product, and we get to talk to them, we get to communicate with them. And we also, because we can talk technology with our product managers, we can talk technology with our customers, we get to learn more information about like not just what products we're going to sell, but how it actually works, what it solves. So we can, like, that's something that I said on the YouTube video, we are insiders. We're insiders on the customer side. We're insiders in our internal company as well, because we know we have more relationships with technical people in our company. We know exactly how things work, and we also have information from the customer side and what they're looking for, so we can connect the two. So we're insiders now. So that's another thing. We are insiders and we are connectors.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. And this is something I'm going to keep referring to the YouTube video. You might want to check it out, but I'm going to dig into this a little bit deeper. We are servant leaders, and almost everybody prides themselves right now about being servant leaders. But the way I see it, I gave you that example earlier. We're like, if anyone's watched Lord of the Rings, think of Samwise Gamgee, right? Frodo is the leader. He's obviously the leader. He makes the decisions of what we're going to go, what we're going to do. Sam is the one who carried him and into the Mordor, into the mountain of, I'm going to butcher it, Mount Doom, into the bowels of Mount Doom to throw the ring. I just geeked out a little bit right now. But yeah, that's how I see us. We kind of do a lot of the little things that make a big difference while not calling all the shots.
So kind of like leadership from behind, or like leading from behind to a degree?
Leading up the chain, right? And that I see that a lot when it's one-to-one, account manager to SE, because you develop that relationship. You can influence, you can chat. I don't know. You work with multiple account managers. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, it's a little bit different in that I find that when you have a one-to-many relationship, to the sales rep, their deal is still of the utmost importance, but there's a little bit of a shift with respect to, it's no longer just this person working just with me. They also have to work with all these other people as well. And so the way that you almost have to lead as a sales engineer in that type of setup is to almost have processes in place that are well established and well defined, so that it's not so much the individual that all these different sales reps have to work around. It's around this process, and it's something that they could always respect, and it's always something that's up there, and exceptions can always be found to kind of just make unique situations work. But when you're kind of being led by something that's defined and you have multiple people all subscribing to that, I don't know, I found a way that it's pretty helpful, because at our company too, you have a lot of different sales engineers, or a few different sales engineers, all servicing the entire AE department. And so it's a little bit harder as any one individual to have a certain style that may not be able to be as easily replicated by the others, let's say on the sales engineering team. And so to be able to have a well-defined process that everybody looks to kind of guide them along is something that we found to be very helpful. But even still at the individual level, I think we've talked about it before, but you almost have to, like, I think you need to have a certain level of respect built up, or the salespeople need to have a certain amount of respect for you before you could kind of guide them along, but always in a supportive way. But once you're there, you're always able to lead along. But yeah, as you said, always in a supportive way.
Yeah, but the thing about respect is that you earn it, right?
Yep.
Some people say respect should be given to everybody. There is a baseline of respect. Like, you treat other people like human beings, but it doesn't mean you have to trust everything that they say. And that trust and respect, you build that. But yeah, like, it is interesting how different things, different teams of SEs work differently.
Mm-hmm. But I think to your point though, I couldn't agree more. Like, the whole idea of kind of leading upwards though, I think we have to as sales engineers. Like, we're not always going to get all the glory always about bringing a deal in, but I mean, the demo is one of the most critical parts during the sales process to really show people the value of what it is that we're delivering. Because if that goes poorly, then chances are the deal goes poorly. But so making sure that the sales rep is all aligned with what you're delivering and leading them along, it's always important.
Well, yeah, you, like, as SEs, when we're leading up, we have our time to shine, and we have the time where we have to, like, sit in the background. So if anybody ever watched basketball, like, growing up, I grew up with the Bulls, like, during their dynasty. And
if you Last Dance?
What was that?
Are you watching The Last Dance right now?
No, my colleague was saying, "Oh, I'm so bored. I'm watching Last Dance." I'm like, "Why are you watching dancing right now?" And he told me it's about Michael Jordan. I'm like, "All right, maybe it's on my list." But so if you guys want to know what I'm talking about, if you don't know who that thing is, just go watch Last Dance on Netflix. I'm not affiliated with them, but think of it as Steve Kerr. Did you ever watch basketball?
Back in the day, like, more so recently, but like, I know the coach of Golden State now, and used to be a player back in the day.
Yeah, so Steve Kerr was a role player, and during one of the most important games of their career, Michael Jordan passed him the ball to take the last shot of the game to win the game. But generally speaking, what he does, he's a role player. He's there to support Michael Jordan. So if you think about it from a sales team, the sales guy is Michael Jordan, or at least you'd hope to be. He's Michael Jordan, and we are Steve Kerr. We're there to support him in whatever they need, and occasionally we get to take the big shot. We do it more often than Steve Kerr would, but that's how I see it.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, it's really good, actually.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. All right, so SEs do a lot of great things. There are some things that I just don't enjoy doing, and that's not common to everybody. This is just for sales engineers who work with hardware. Shipping. Yes. So I used to have when we get demo requests, we get like servers, we get routers, we get equipment in. I have to configure it and then take it over to the customer. So that's something else that we do. We have to carry big, heavy hunks of metal and bring them in, like power them up, cable them up. These are not things that we talk about. And I'm sure that other people in software may not have to do that, but they have other things that are small things that they're things that we have to do to get to do the demo, right? Or to get to do the proof of concept. So yeah, shipping was something I really hated doing.
No kidding. Yeah, that's such a unique thing. I work in the software world, so that's definitely not the biggest load I have to carry is, I don't know, usually emotional, if anything. I mean, nothing like that.
but no, you do work with maybe not you specifically, but people who work in software might have to go and install software on a server, make sure that the server is configured properly to take in their to accept their new software, or they have to install different little things to get to do what they wanted to do, right?
Yeah, so, potentially. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of prep. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Oh, for sure. Even just something as little as saving software, making sure the right people have the right access to little things, and making sure that, if you're about to do a proof of concept that, well, like I just said, that you have the right people involved, that things are configured properly, things are working properly. Because in the software issue, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to, get a issue fixed, because it might not be, at least with a hardware issue, in some cases you could tweak it physically to make something work. I'm just guessing. Whereas in software, you have to go into the code and get a bug fixed, and that could sometimes introduce quite a few challenges if you don't do that early enough.
Yeah, but there's little things like, hey, you want to do this demo for the customer, you ask them to send you their database so that you can actually use it, and then their database is corrupt, or the file is too big and they can't email it. You have to find an FTP server, or you have to use Dropbox. Oh no, we can't use Dropbox because our internal IT doesn't allow it. So what do you guys can use, right? Mm-hmm. You have to kind of solve problems before you actually get to do the job.
Oh, 100%. And then even in the case when you finally find a way to get that information, then you have to you have to transfer that information to a format that you could actually take in. And sometimes going back and forth with the customer to do that isn't worth it. So you just do it yourself. And in the background, all of a sudden you deliver this demo. And from the sales rep's perspective, you just got this information, delivered a demo. They don't know. Idea.
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of problems that you have to solve to be able to do the job.
Right.
So I focus on shipping, because it's my pet peeve. Like right now, we have a guy who takes care of all the shipping. We just drop the box. It doesn't even have to be a piece of equipment. A hunk of metal doesn't even have to be an ESD bag. Although technically, you should always carry electronic equipment in ESD bags, which is electrical safety, whatever, so that there won't be any what's it called? I take it for granted now, but shocks or when friction causes sparks or whatever. Damn, I'm showing my ignorance here. I take it for granted now because I've done this so many times, and I just, it's in the back of my mind.
That's fair.
Electrical interference, basically. You cause electrical interference, which may damage the equipment.
Oh, makes sense. Okay, cool. Like static, potentially.
Static. That's the word that I'm looking for. Thank you. So, you just drop him the equipment and he ships it. But in my previous job, I had to, especially because I live in Canada, I had to come up with the customs invoices right? It's not just like fill in a FedEx form or a DHL form. No, you have to go through customs,
Right.
and that makes stuff difficult. But everybody has these little things as part of their job that are just not fun.
Yeah.
We talked to Tucker Snedeker the other day, and he was talking about like as a salesperson, he had to talk to lawyers, which was not fun. As sales engineers, we have to fill in these demo requests, fill in like Salesforce. Nobody wants to do that. It's not fun. We have to do it anyways. So these are some things that no one ever talks about. We all glorify sales engineer. Like you do demos, you're a storyteller. You know, you take people out to lunch, to dinner, you get drunk. Oh, but yeah, the next day you have to fill out a form that talks about everything that you did the day before, or expense reports.
Yeah, I gotta fill out my expense report still from like 4 or 5 months ago. Thanks for reminding me. Oh, sorry, company.
Yeah, like my previous company, we use our company credit card. You don't have to even put in a receipt. You just submit. You say like it was lunch, 15 people, submit a receipt.
Wow.
And I used to do that like clockwork every 2 weeks. Current company, they want receipts. It's been like 3 months.
I would highly recommend. Do you guys have like any sort of app or something to manage your expenses, or is it all?
Concur is like the de facto for many of the companies. Every company I've worked for, I worked for 3 companies where I had to fill in reports.
Yeah.
Concur has been the one.
Fair.
You know one?
No, well, yeah, we have Certify internally, but Concur is another one that I'm somewhat familiar with. I would highly recommend for people just getting into the world of like business trips and expenses, take pictures of your receipt as soon as you get it. Like it's a pain in the butt to take the extra 5 seconds right after you get a receipt to like fill in everything that you need to in the mobile app and all that. But trust me, it saves you so much time when you put the reports together.
See, I would say that's great advice, but it's coming from someone who hasn't submitted an expense report in like 6 months.
True. But it's way easier when I eventually do, because there's a couple things that I forgot to do. There's some hotels.
Because you wait 6 months, it's so much better that you do it right on the spot. Because
well, like, because there's the actual setting up the expense is one thing, and then amalgamating it into a report is something else. And so
yeah,
amalgamation part is the thing I haven't done yet. But that's also because I'm lazy and I haven't got around to it.
yeah, but I agree with you, because like if I take pictures right away, so I don't. You could use Concur to take pictures, or whatever app. You can probably use the app to take pictures and submit it right away. I take a picture, just regular picture, and then email it from my personal email to my work email.
Just to have a record of it?
Just to have a record of it, because like I tried to use Concur on my phone. It's not the easiest tool to use. It's slow, whatever. I can just take a picture. And that's how I do it. And I try to do it right after I get the receipt. But sometimes it's so hard to do it in front of customers. Like, hold on. Like if we go to like something like Mucho Burrito or something where you pay and then you go eat, it's like everybody's talking is like, hey, hold on, I'm just gonna write everybody's names on these receipts, so I can send it to my boss, right? It just feels weird sometimes. And then if you don't do it right away, it's just you won't do it. Like,
yeah, I guess use your judgment in the end.
Yeah, and then I get a bunch of receipts like sitting on the like by the front door. We have a little table where we put like our phones or whatever. I have a bunch of receipts there, and then my wife starts like, Razzie, what are we doing with these receipts? Just keep them. What are we doing with these receipts? Like, I need them. All right, well, they can put them in the basement somewhere. I'm gonna lose them in the basement. They belong there. So yeah.
I feel that.
So basically, expense reports can cause marital distress. So be careful about that. What else? What is something like that you hate doing? Like we ask this question often. Like, what's one thing you hate about your job? Or we don't ask it like that. But if there's like a little thing that you have to do often that's annoying, what is that in your job?
In my job, I would say, I think it's the tracking of things that I do. Like I'll like I understand why it's necessary. Like I understand being able to look back and recognize the impact that you had, and understand maybe like how resources are being allocated, perhaps on a managerial level. However, to go through like a not even a stressful day, but just a very busy day, like thing by thing by thing. And then at the end of the day to finally have like this one final activity just to record everything that you did. It's just such a, I understand why it's necessary. I just hate it because it's like you're working at such a, I don't know, at such a level of intensity for so long. And then I don't know what it is about this, but it almost seems like when I have to record everything I do, it's like revisiting these activities that I've just kind of put behind me. I'm not even put behind me, but like I've already kind of put the effort to do. Why am I putting more effort in just to track it? But that's the only thing. If there was some way for me to immediately do it, and I guess there is, like it only takes a couple seconds after I do something to write it down or to get it recorded. But yeah, it's just a pain. And then when you also kind of overlay having to do it into an interface like Salesforce or Dynamics or whatever CRM you have to use, then you also have to contend with that interface, and maybe there's slow loading times or all that, and it's just a pain in the butt. So that's what I hate personally.
Yeah. So I don't do that much tracking of what I did, but I do track what I need to do, right? So what I did tends to lead to what I need to do. So if I get an email from a customer asking me a question about something, I don't know the answer, I have to forward that to my product manager, but then I need to track that I forward that to the product manager, right? So that's like, it is not like, it's not like I hate doing that. I hate missing something. That's the part that I hate, right? And especially if you get like 10,000 requests to do one thing or another, you're gonna have to track all those and not forget any of those. And that's the challenge that a lot of SEs have. I have one colleague who uses who tried Excel spreadsheets, tried to use tasks. Now he's using like a notepad. He just writes it on. He opens the notepad on the computer, writes everything down. I'm not sure how that went for him. I didn't ask him recently. That's been a few months. Another person, he just writes every time he gets a new action item, he writes it down on his to-do list.
Yeah, I personally do that as well. Like I have a bunch of sticky notes here and there. That's just like, or even like in my notebook, that's like randomly scribbled notes about just like, oh, don't forget to do this, or like, here's one thing I got to do. But I mean, it's helpful sometimes to get some of that stuff out of your head. I used to be one that never really wrote down notes for anything, and it get a little bit stressful sometimes having to kind of keep track of everything up there. But then when you finally kind of put some of it down on paper, you can alleviate some of the stress in whatever form, rather. At least that's the experience I had.
Yeah, the thing I don't like about sticky notes or notepad or any of that is you lose the sticky notes. Or like I try to do tasks on either Google Tasks or like on Microsoft Outlook tasks, but then I never look at them because I'm already looking at my emails, I'm looking at my my calendar. So right now, if I have a task that needs to be done, I like on Google Outlook, I set it up so that I can just click a button and it sends it to calendar, and then I can select what day I'm doing it. But if I'm in a hurry, I just move that email, like it could be like a small email, I move it to calendar, and then I forget what that's about. And then I have to go back and dig into what was the question here? Like why am I tracking this? So these are the struggles that I'm working on. Like every time I do something, I run into another problem that I have to solve. So for that, I just started adding a small note. Like do this, and now it's helping me, but now I need to figure out what the hell is that note about. Okay, that note made sense when I wrote it. It's been 2 months. What was that note about? Right. Yeah. So now I have to write a bigger note with like a little bit of context and a little bit of background. Right. So yeah, these are tracking what I need to do is harder for me than tracking what I did because I don't really track what I did.
Fair enough. That'll explain it too. Yeah, no, it's valid. I guess for anybody then, I mean, you got to find what works for you. There's no maybe tried and true method that's going to work for everybody all the time. I guess depending on whatever technology stack you're using, depending on what it is that you're being measured on, and however it is that you work best, you just got to figure out just how to keep track of these types of things. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it was this weird little feeling. I don't really know how to articulate it too well, but it's like the idea of, I'm getting hired to do all these things. I'm getting paid to do all these things to support, the bringing of business to the company and, just showing off the value prop and doing all of the standard things that SEs do and some of the not so standard things that you talk about in the video. But I don't have to I'm not getting paid to, record all these things down. I'm really only recording these things down for insurance, so that if I ever get questioned about why something didn't happen, I could say that, hey, it actually did. Or if I'm getting questioned around like, are you even that valuable? It's like, yes, okay, these are all the things that I'm doing. But a part of me is like, do I even have to be showing these things off? Like, you should know that I'm doing all these things because you're not hearing about it in my regular day.
No.
But yeah, I get why. It's frustrating.
So here's the thing. I used to work in a support team at Nokia. There were a few people who were good at their job, and they like told the manager, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. There are a few people who sucked at their job, but they were telling the manager, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and the manager thought they were like amazing. And
Right.
there were a couple of people who were amazing, but didn't tell the manager anything. And the manager had the hardest time dealing with those guys. He didn't think they did anything. Right.
That's
I
so
won't. What was that?
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. I won't. Well, no, it's not. It's not his fault. He doesn't know what they're doing, right?
But
So he either has to manually go and track every ticket that they worked on, right? And you know what? There are some tickets that takes like 5 minutes to finish. And one of the guys I really didn't enjoy working with, just took maybe 10 of those a day, and they were all critical. But it's a known issue. You just do this, we're fine. And that's all he had to put in the ticket. But it looked like he worked on the 10,000 tickets in 1 month. Whereas another one, those two guys specifically, they only picked tickets that were not known issues. No one's ever seen them before. And they spend instead of taking 10,000 tickets, they took 3 tickets a month. But each one of them is 10 hours a day worth of work, for example. And they just worked on it and worked on it. Nobody knew anything. And then they solved the problem. They closed the ticket and moved on to the next one.
Right.
But whose fault is that? It's their fault.
Yeah.
They didn't tell anyone what they were doing.
It's a good point. No, it's a really good point.
They didn't make it easy for the manager to understand what they're doing, to understand their value. It's not the manager's job to sell themselves your value. It's your job to sell your manager your value so you can get a raise, right? You can, and nobody wants, not many people would like to market themselves, but you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one got a raise without asking for it.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. I even just the idea, like, it always bugged me for the longest time, that expression of the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
I always kind of went by the way of like the squeaky wheel gets replaced, but no, unfortunately, it is the fact that the squeaky wheel in many respects gets the grease. And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, if your manager doesn't know what you're doing, then they don't know what you're doing, and everybody makes assumptions. And so the natural assumption to make is maybe the people doing 3 tickets aren't as valuable as those doing 10,000. Even though the reality of it is that there might very much be the opposite situation. So yeah, that's a great point. I struggled with that for quite some time.
We all struggle with it, and it's not the squeaky wheel. When you say squeaky wheel, that has a negative connotation to it, right? Oh, I'm complaining all the time. But
Sure.
it's not really a squeaky wheel. A squeaky wheel does get replaced. If someone's complaining all the time, they will get replaced. But if someone's saying, "Hey, I did this," "Hey, I did that," like it's the alerts on your Twitter. Every time you get a message or a news, something pops up, you want to check it. You want to learn about it, right? So it's like it's notification, not squeakiness.
Yeah, good point. I like that.
Wow. All right, what else? We'll say a couple more, I think. Do you want to share? So we already talked about like being connectors, being insiders, being servant leaders. We also talked about some of the negative or not so fun stuff, which is like tracking tasks, doing the like problem solving before we even start being able to do our job. So these are like 5 things. Is there anything else you can think of? One positive, one negative.
Okay. Let me think of something negative first, because it's pretty easy to come up with positive things. I mean, it's not even really a negative. Like, I guess like I'm not the most technical person out there. I've learned a lot, and I'm like always developing myself. But I will admit that sometimes it's not the worst. Like, again, I'm going to say it's a negative only because it's made me uncomfortable, but it's kind of led to me learning in the end. So it ultimately was a positive. But I found that with sales engineers, there's sometimes the expectation that you're extremely technical, or rather that you are an engineer. And I guess it's fair because of the name, I suppose, but I'm not. Like, I'm pretty sure my title has to change soon because I'm not an actual engineer. And so sometimes you could go into it where there could be a very interesting conversation happening. This is actually no more applicable, let's say, to on-site presentations with this whole idea about me being an engineer, even though I'm not. I find that because you kind of have this profile put upon you, that when, let's say, there's various discussions happening in a room, and maybe some are more interesting than others as per whatever your personal interests are. I've personally found that the more technical conversations will always gravitate towards you, or I guess in my case, me. Even though, I have far more interest in that movie that people are talking about across the table, as opposed to like all the unique configurations. So I guess just come to the territory. You are the technical salesperson, and it needs to be for what it needs to be. But in my experience, I've wished that people didn't see me as technical as they actually did. And that being said, like, there's a lot of value that comes with that as well. It's just a personal grade.
Yeah, well, it makes you the technical advisor, right? The trusted advisor.
Agreed.
But here's the thing about that. If both you and your sales guy are not technical, who is the technical person that can answer the questions? Right?
Totally. Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
So one of you needs to get technical. I don't know who that is, but considering you're the sales and
yeah, no, it's true. Like I bite the bullet and then I make up for it in the evening, where then I'll get less technical. But yeah, no, it's it's just what it is.
you can still enjoy talking about movies and being technical at the same time. Like
true.
We talked about Lord of the Rings right now, although this is not a technical show, but it's a technical in terms of sales engineering.
Right, but imagine, across the table they're talking about Lord of the Rings, but you're talking about I don't even know, like DOS configurations. I don't even know what that is, but like things like that. I want to talk about Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say one negative thing for me is sometimes we get like reamed, if you will. I don't know. Can we say this on the show?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Like we get. So I've had to sit down and listen to a customer complain for half hour about how crappy the product was, and that was with the previous company. Right? But then, like, right now with this company, I still get the same thing. Like, some customers are just never going to be happy. So that's the part. Like, but no, the product. You're saying you want a Ferrari, but you paid for a Honda. Like, and if you say that to them, and like, that's something I learned from my account manager. Like, the customer started like talking crap about it. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And I look at my account manager is just doing this. Calm down, calm down, calm down. And like that customer had like really a power issue. Like, he really wanted to show that how strong he is, and he was like the shortest guy ever. So I'm not trying to like he had some power struggle issue. Maybe we should cut that out. But yeah, like the customer had some issues that he wanted to assert his power, and it was just so hard to sit there and not say anything, right? And we take all this information, and okay, I guess we're sending this to PM. Just remove all the swear words from here. Send it to them. Oh, he wants to be able to run 10,000 tests without configuring any. Sure, yeah, something like that.
No, it's fair. I guess in the end, people just sometimes need to know they've been heard, even if sometimes the requests are just so out there. They just need to get that off their back. And I guess also as a sales engineer, kind of what you were mentioning before, like, you are that technical advisor. You're almost a technical representative of the entire company, even though you had no, input to whatever issues this person is experiencing, or rather you had no input involved in the development of the product that ultimately is causing this person to face the issues that he's facing or he or she is facing. But even still, you still have to be the person to kind of take it and, be the connector to connect those issues to who they need to be connected to and all that.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is when, like, you just join a company and they tell you, well, we told you guys last year. Like, well, I've been on the job for like 2 months.
Which is kind of fun though, too, right? Because like, speaking to the importance of being human, that's come up a lot. Like, in the end, that's all you can say is like, oh yeah, fair enough. Like, I hear you. That sucks. That's really unfortunate. And you know what, like even sometimes taking their side, you'd be like, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I just joined here a year ago, or not even, I just joined yesterday. It's good to know I'm joining now and not a year ago when things were even worse. I know I like to talk about a lot with our product because our product has made some pretty impressive leaps and bounds in the last 2 years. When they had a demo previously 2 years ago and were very not so impressed with us, I'll often say like, yeah, our product sucked, or not sucked, but like it's come quite a bit, quite a long
Yeah,
way.
a positive spin, not a negative spin. It didn't
Exactly.
suck. It was just it was in its infancy, and now it's grown so much based on your feedback. Like we did all we could to get you what you want, and that's the positive thing about it. You get to learn how to deal with human beings. Like we talked about it earlier. I have rental properties, right? I have a couple, and being an SE has taught me so much about negotiating with them. Like forget about sales engineering in general. It's taught me about life, how you talk to people. I went and bought my car. Like it's a 2013 Ford Fusion. I bought it in 2015. It's not the most impressive car, but I went right before I knew their quota was coming up. Right, I went in December 5th. Right, their quota comes out or they have to achieve their quota by the end of the year. So December 31st, and I just negotiated $6,000 off of it. I got the price, like for my trade-in, I got the price that I would have had if I were to sell it normally. So it wasn't a bulk like price. So I really got a good deal just because me learning about sales engineering. Because of sales engineering, I was able to negotiate better to buy a car. I'm able to negotiate better with my tenants. I'm able to keep them happy better. Right. So I guess that's a positive thing. Well, I don't think we're talking about the pros and cons of sales engineering, but we're talking about the things that we do as sales engineers. So, but hey,
That works. That's
that,
negotiation. That's part of it, and it bleeds into real life. That's super true.
oh yeah, and negotiation. It is some. I hate when sales engineers say we don't negotiate. Like, no, you do. Every time you open your mouth, that could lead to having the account manager negotiate an extra 5K to the deal, or losing the deal altogether, or negotiate 5K less if you said, "Oh, sorry, our product sucks." You just lost all power. Versus like, our product solves your problem, man. Right?
Even internally though too, I find that you're negotiating all the time, or at least in my experience, I'm negotiating all the time. Those like myself and those on my team where, let's say a salesperson wants to do a demo on a certain date, but you know that there's a technical backlog that's going to cause this particular very complex demo to not be done on that date without a lot of risk. You have to negotiate with that salesperson to understand why a demo might not happen tomorrow as opposed to say next week, or otherwise even negotiate with the technical people to have them understand why this particular demo is being given so much more of an importance than a standard thing. And so always negotiating, being that smooth lubricant between all, is an important skill to have.
It's funny about negotiation. My company sent a few SEs or a few salespeople to do a negotiation class. It was like a 4-hour, like half-day thing. It wasn't a week or whatever. But now the manager jokes every time. The sales manager jokes every time that most of the salespeople are using the negotiation internally to get a raise instead of externally to get more sales. Anyways, yeah, like I think that's enough for today. It was fun to chat with you like that without any.
Yeah. Likewise. What
any plans? What?
Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, I was just saying it was fun to negotiate without like any set questions. We just what happened was our guest canceled. He's not feeling well. Hopefully it's nothing serious, and we just decided, you know what, we're going to talk about things that we do on a day-to-day basis, but nobody knows about, right? And that's where all this came up. So it was a fun conversation.
Yeah, agreed. No, thanks so much, everybody, for listening today. Hopefully, I'm not sure at what point each of you are at in your respective countries with respect to COVID-19, if things are loosening up yet, if things are tightening down, if there's even a second wave. I don't think everybody will be out and about when we release this. So, still stay safe. Try not to contribute to the second wave of the virus hitting people by leaving your houses too early or your respective places too early. And maybe we have a future show on things to maybe keep yourselves busy while stuck at home all day. But yeah,
like shaving your head.
Yeah, eventually. No, I don't know, man. I actually have a big regret where I washed my hair this weekend and I conditioned it, and now like I can't achieve the big poofiness that I was going for last time. So yeah, I might need to get back to being gross. I just not wash my hair
I have no idea what you're talking about.
again. Hey, you're growing it out too, though. I like that.
No, I shaved. What are you talking about? I'm going. I shaved it last weekend.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I shave it every
Okay.
3 weeks, once every 3 weeks.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. My bad. Hey, looking good though too.
Yeah, it's a receding
Okay.
hairline. Well, so thanks guys for listening, and stay safe. Join the forums. If you haven't left a review or a rating anywhere, do so. It helps. It helps a lot. Share this with friends. I feel like I'm begging, so I'm gonna stop right now. With that, this is Ramsey for Benny. We're signing off.